Welcome to HMG Live, a production of HMG Strategy, your global partner helping you reinvent the future of work. Home to the HMG Marketplace, a fast, easy, safe, and efficient way to connect with the right vendors for your technology needs.
We can't be together at these events, right? But I think the next best thing is being able to connect through the marketplace.
And now, a warm welcome to today's host, lead principal and CEO of HMG Strategy, Hunter Muller.
Good morning, and welcome. Welcome to the 2020 San Diego CIO Executive Leadership Summit. I'm Hunter Muller. My team and I are delighted to be here with you today. I think we have a world-class agenda for you and an amazing summit. Really excited to really be here with you all today. Today's partially powered by Appian. Appian's here to simplify what it takes to turn great ideas into powerful business applications that deliver significant value. The Appian Workforce Safety Solution enables organizations to intelligently manage the complexities of returning workers to on-site while maintaining the privacy and security of employees' health information. And a big shout out to our other partners, Darktrace, Monti, Informatica, Sonatype, and Zerto. Please, when they reach out to you, visit with them for 20 minutes or so and learn more about their new products and services. They're all very interesting companies doing some really cool things. And I'd like to bring Steve Phillpott. Steve, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hunter, how you doing today?
Great, good to see you, and great to be with you one more time. Now, digitally, virtually, but just second best.
Hey, it's the new world we're living in. Looking forward to it.
Hey, what's new with San Diego Sim?
Well, thank you. And on behalf of Sim San Diego board and all of our members, we'd like to welcome everybody to today's event. And when we take a look at the event, Hunter, you and I have done quite a few of these events together. I've been at some of your other ones, and each year we keep saying, "Oh, this is the best event." I do think today's event is probably going to be one of our best events. I think we've got some great speakers, but more importantly, I think we've got some great content. You were doing a little bit of intro before we got started and talking about things to talk about around, authenticity, around, how do we strengthen employee engagement? And I think that's one of the topics in this new hybrid world that we're in, is how do we ensure that employees, still are engaged? And so again, I'm really looking forward to the content, Hunter.
Great, Steve. Looking forward to talking later. Thanks so much again. Great partnership for going on 10 years.
Yeah, likewise.
Take care. Next up, we have Mark Taylor. Mark Taylor is the CEO of Sim International. Mark, always good to see you. And you're coming in from Austin today?
Yeah, I am, Hunter. Great to see you as well. I would love to be in San Diego at this time of the year. It's going to be, there's a reason millions of people love living in that part of the country. It is just beautiful.
So what's new with Sim International?
Hey, Hunter, we're just thrilled to be a part of what you guys are doing across the country. Steve and Barb and the leadership team in San Diego have created, as you know, a great community of leaders in the San Diego community. And I certainly encourage all of those on the meeting today to check them out at simnet.org and scroll down to San Diego. They're just a great community. We're glad to be a part of it. And Hunter, thank you for the investment that you guys continue to make, both in San Diego and the chapters across the country. These forums have been phenomenal. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. Great to see you.
Yeah.
Take care.
You too.
So we have in the chat, if you click on the chat, you can take a survey. Our partners at Zendesk, we're doing some research for them, creating a culture of empathy in uncertain times. So click on the chat, fill out the survey, and you'll receive a report here in about 6 to 8 weeks. A shout out to our marketplace partners, Appian, Ariaka Awake, Darktrace, Forescout, Globant, Obsidian, PagerDuty, Sonatype, Tanium, and Testian. Go to the HMG marketplace and learn more about great companies, products, and services where you can actually download white papers, see key videos from key executives, as well as set up a meeting. And look, we're doing a little pop-up survey. We're looking to refine the marketplace. If you would vote, what are your organization's specific technology needs now? Multiple choice. and hit submit. That'd be great. Thank you so much. First up is JR Tsort. JR is the CISO of Darktrace. JR, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Hunter. Great to see you again.
Hey, you know, we've been through so much in the last 8 or 9 months. It's almost surreal, right? I mean, global pandemic, a recession so steep and so quick, you couldn't, if you blinked, you would miss the fall of the market and the rise of the market. And in some markets, some vertical industries, really, truly a depression, a complete almost shutdown, right? So how do you help your clients navigate this incredible environment?
So, yeah, I agree. It's been rapid and transformational for a lot of companies. And we've seen, you know, a lot of industries bring in their current digital transformation strategies from 18, 24 months to a number of weeks. And we've seen another set of industries that are struggling to stay alive. And I think, you know, the Darktrace response is quite different between those two with our customers that are, you know, having to rapidly rework their business models. We're right in the trenches with them, helping rethink how they approach security and risk management for those new and struggling business models. For those companies that are down the path on digital transformation, we've been able to keep pace with them and ensure that as they move data from on-prem to cloud or cloud to cloud or hybrid cloud, Darktrace is there in every aspect of that digital domain, helping manage risk as they go through that digital transformation. And that's just been an exciting way for us to contribute and to jump into this transformational change.
JR, you were a former CISO of a Fortune 100 company, right?
I was, yeah, Micron Technology, almost 20 years there.
And so, you know, scale matters, right? But right now, in the history of your being a CISO, have you ever seen a more aggressive cyber threat landscape across the globe?
Well, yeah. I think, you know, scale and cyber attacks and cyber defense is a bit of an arms race. And what we've seen over the past 10 years and over the past 1 year is rapid improvements in cyber attacks by nature of advanced tools becoming available to commodity actors. And what this does is drive your scale problem, because now we've got a lot more people with malicious intent that have access to advanced tools and services. So this has driven scale to some extent. And then the opportunities have grown in scale too, as we see so many people move data to cloud. That has opened the opportunities for misconfigurations, for teams configuring things in cloud that they're not fully yet trained for, just because of the speed of the journey for the company. So when you put these two things together, then scale becomes a real problem, and has absolutely driven a marked increase in automation and the ability for a lot of organizations to be targeted in a single campaign, driving better results for the attackers, frankly.
Hey, JR, what are your reports saying, the third-party reports saying, in terms of spikes of nation state or aggressive threats towards American companies? Is it up 200%, 300%, 400%?
It's significant, and of course the election cycle right now fuels a lot of that. Some of it probably misinformation campaigns, and it's difficult to sort through some of the noise that you follow in the media. When we work on our data sets kind of in the back room, we absolutely see more activity coming from advanced actors. Sometimes they're sponsored by nation states, sometimes they're not, but they're clearly advanced. And in some cases, it's the same people just working on the night shift.
When you think about this, the change of the threat landscape so dramatically changed 9 months ago, we went to the work from home environment. How have you seen companies, teams, and their cultures evolve, and how have you helped them with this, specifically the Darktrace solution?
I've been excited and encouraged by how security teams that I talk to and IT leaders are embracing this digital transformation. I think we've got an environment now where the CIO and the CISO roles have been brought to the table in a way that perhaps they hadn't before, in terms of absolute critical path to business revenue, they're now front and center in terms of how do we get this business running online? How do we manage risk while we're doing so? That has been a really compelling conversation to be a part of. And we're embracing those teams with open arms to bring our new innovations to match them as they go forward on that journey. It's been, all things considered going on in the world, it's been quite an exciting time to partner with these companies.
When you think of the role of the CIO and the CISO, more critical than ever that there's a great rapport between the CIO and the C-suite and the board?
Well, yeah, it's always been important, clearly, but some organizations have treated those roles maybe less strategically than others. I think right now there's so much that the CIO and CISO can bring to the table in terms of risk management conversations and revenue protection, risk management specifically, that is really key when you're moving all of your data to one or more clouds from what has historically been an enclave on your main campus. So as we see this large shift in business model changes, it's really critical that the CIO and CISO are right at the table to design that going forward.
Hey, JR, if you were to give a CISO and a CIO a tip, 1, 2, or 3 tips on how to work more effectively together and be better at telling the story to the board and the CEO, what would you tell them?
Well, I believe it's absolutely critical that CIO and CISO have a close relationship. And certainly there's some level of tension that exists there naturally, and that's probably healthy, but they've got to be able to get along. They've got to have a solid rapport, and they've got to be able to partner together going into the executive team and the C-suite. The worst thing that can happen is they disagree with each other in the same meeting, causing all of that work now to take a step back until they sort it out. I think often the C-suite will look at those two roles and expect them to be aligned and in agreement. And then the state at which they're not fully aligned or they don't perceive to be aligned, I think can cause some challenge in terms of moving the ball forward in the C-suite boardroom.
When we think of Darktrace, what's truly unique about the Darktrace enterprise solution?
Darktrace, still relatively young company, founded about 7 years ago. From the ground up, the technology has always been built on a mathematical approach with machine learning and AI algorithms. And this is truly unique. And the level of scale at which the company has been able to build on top of that foundation really makes the technology a very special and unique approach to dealing with scale, dealing with large changes in a very fast time. Often security teams just don't have the ability to keep up because security budgets aren't growing this year. So it's been regularly a message of do more with less down to the security teams. The only way you match pace with the scale that we've been talking about is by the application of automation and autonomous decision-making by AI algorithms. And that's how I think Darktrace specifically can help companies scale when it comes to their security and risk management.
Yeah, a little bit more about the ongoing learning process of your algorithm. Can you explain that a little further?
Yeah, this is generally what falls in the bucket of unsupervised machine learning. When we land in a customer's environment, and that can be on-prem kind of traditional enterprise networking, it can be cloud, it can be email, it can be endpoints, right? We're trying to cover all of that space. Really critical that the solution itself can learn what normal is as normal is being defined. Any scenario at which a company changes and then the security team must configure the security tool is just ripe for failure. And that's where the scale problem comes in. Teams just can't keep pace with the rate the business is moving. You've got to have an approach that can learn on the fly.
So when you think about small security teams, they need help, right? Smaller companies need a different kind of help. What kind of advice would you give a CISO with a smaller team?
The challenges of a small team are many, certainly. The ability, if you think about AI and machine learning here as a force multiplier, it's not going to replace the human in many different contexts. What it can do is take a bunch of commodity work off of the human team. So think about a security incident being fully investigated, documented, and understood. To do that in a human world requires multiple hours per incident, and a team quickly becomes overrun with doing the amount of diligence that's really necessary. And that's where attacks fall through the gaps. So if we take that work off and let an AI do that kind of documentation and investigation work, it frees up the remaining human staff to do more critical thinking and to apply business context and to think about preventative controls. That's where you get your value back from having an AI involved in your security operations. It's delaying the next hire. It's delaying the next growth for that team, because I'm taking low value work off of them that still needs to be done and letting a machine do that. And that's where we really step levels of productivity coming out of small teams.
Hey, JR, thanks so much for coming on the program, and thanks to Darktrace for being such a great national partner of HMG strategy. Darktrace is one of our top picks. You helped us found the marketplace. Nicole was amazing. People can learn more about Darktrace in the HMG marketplace, and we're reaching out directly to JR.
Sure. Yeah, happy to chat. Thanks again, Hunter.
Great to see you. Thanks so much.
Have a good conference. Bye.
Super. Hey, next up we have John Rossman. John's the managing partner of Rossman Partners, and we're going to discuss what would Jeff do. So there's only one Jeff that I can imagine this is about. No, it's Jeff Bezos. John, great to see you.
Great to be here, Hunter. Thanks for the opportunity to talk.
Hey, you got some local roots in San Diego. Tell us about you're right down the street, right? About 2 months out of the year, right?
Yeah, so we live part-time in San Clemente. My boys are water polo players, so we spend a bunch of time down there for water polo and everything. We're in Bellevue most of the year, but in San Clemente for part of the year. At the best time of the year to be down there in the wintertime.
So let's talk about Amazon. I mean, there's just so many different angles to take this story, John. You know, when you think about it, is this your second or third Amazon book?
Third Amazon book, Think Like Amazon. Yep.
Think Like Amazon. What was the most revealing thing in your current point of research? Like, wow, he really was amazing as he evolved the company over the past 20 to 30 years.
You know, and this has been a consistent thing, which is Jeff and the Amazon leadership team do not run Amazon to appease Wall Street, right? And so, you know, my favorite quote from him this year is the June quarterly announcement, and he starts off with Amazon shareholders ought to take a seat. And what he announced was that they were going to invest the entirety of their $4 billion operating profit into essentially creating a COVID-proof supply and fulfillment chain, right? And I think it's that boldness of just like, especially at moments like this, profits become a secondary measure of, you know, being essential, of creating the future and reacting to these times. And Amazon had no problem doing that. You could kind of laugh. It's like, yeah, they've been doing that for a long, long time. But I think that was probably a very easy decision at Amazon to do because it's the right thing to do, right? And so I think that is kind of my favorite thing that I've seen from Amazon in the short term.
You know, our conference chair and president of the San Diego SIM chapter, Steve Phillpott, back in March when this all hit, said this will be a time of innovation. I can so amazingly, his timing was amazing. But innovation always matters now more than ever, right? And how does Amazon constantly do it day in, day and year out?
Well, and I think the problem is like if you waited for this to start that, like you are really at a disadvantage. And I think it's just they think of the business they run as one is how to operate things at scale. And the second is, how do we continue to experiment and figure out either, kind of removing friction and improving what we have, or the next new big idea. And I think it's that combination of understanding your business as really two halves, that innovation isn't a hobby. Innovation isn't something we do once a week. It's like, it's half of the job here. I think that really, like, you want to talk about a culture of innovation. Culture's where you spend resources. Culture's when you sub-optimize short-term profitability to be creating the future. Culture, innovation, or hiring people that you don't have to have, but they're the bandwidth and the leadership to innovate. Like, those are the choices that companies need to be making during this time.
Hey, John, let's dive in or click in on that one more time. I mean, you're a sports guy. I'm a sports guy. Many of the folks on the broadcast here have competed in some kind of activity in their lives. In business, it's about winning, right? Business is about winning, and you have to innovate to win, right?
Yeah, and I think Amazon's orientation of that is your customers tell you when you're winning, and so they talk about being less competitor focused and really customer focused. And I'm sure everyone here has dealt with AWS. In my dealings with them, you really have to pull out of them to talk about a competitor. It's their natural orientation. Like, they decline to talk about their competitors in my experiences and what I've seen and everything. And I think it's that customer orientation, competitor orientation. And it may sound like a subtlety, but man, those things pay off over time. Paying attention to your customer and taking their little signals, their bad days, things that aren't going right for them, and going, how do we improve upon that? That's again, back to kind of this culture of innovation through continuous improvement.
Talk to us a little bit further about culture. There's a note around every day being day one. What does that mean in Jeff's mind?
Yeah, so day one is one of these brilliant, long time quips that Amazon and Bezos had, which is basically, hey, the internet technology is just starting to impact our lives and business, and we are going to be a company that leans into and creates what the next thing is versus being a victim of that. And so in one of, I think it's the 2017 shareholder letter, Jeff kind of outlines like, hey, what's it mean to be a day one company? What's it mean to be a day two company? And he really, like he always does, delivers us kind of the playbook. Really what I've tried to do with my books and Think Like Amazon, it's like, not about Amazon, it's about what can we take from like Amazon to apply into our own teams and our own culture. But in that particular one, Jeff talked about don't live through proxies. And what he's talking about is be careful about just paying attention to customer surveys and to what your competition is saying, what the press is saying about you. Actually measure every transaction. Go out and work in the call center. Go out and work in the field. Be a customer in whatever fashion you can. That gives you a different level of insight, and paying attention to every order. And when one goes wrong, that's a signal, right? We haven't quite reached perfection yet in operations. Those things are signals. So that's one. And I think really kind of the most important one. And then he talks about just paying attention to trends, right? And these are things that are probably small. You may have a tough time really saying, hey, these are going to be relevant or impactful for our business in the short term. And while that's true, paying attention and being curious and learning about them so that you can pick the moment on when you want to do a small bet to actually build a capacity. And so he talks about machine learning as being one, but each industry, each company has a different set of kind of forward-looking trends that the leadership team, and I think it's even more powerful if you do it as a group, go on a learning journey about this topic and dig deeper than what you get in a newspaper on it.
Hey, John, how do you help your clients, your enterprise clients in your practice?
Yeah, so on a couple of different topics. So I work in as an advisor and not as a consultant. So it's, very fractional, but just having that external perspective. And really, like, most of the time what I'm doing is I'm just asking questions to help us think harder about what we're proposing. And so one of the most curious habits of Amazon is this habit of writing things out, right? 6-pagers, future press releases, frequently asked questions, all these things that people write before they start experimenting, right? So that we can be clearer about what we're going to do and what we're not going to do. And then when we proceed on something, we have such a better joint shared understanding of exactly, like, what's the new superpower we're going to deliver to our customer. And that's really the way that I work, is just being more planful and having clarity on what we're going to proceed in. And then the other big topic tends to be around just how we use metrics in our business, and metrics that really shine a light on where the signal is, the noise, the imperfections, and how we make metrics a verb, right? Like, we don't have metrics so that everything's green and everything looks good. We have metrics so that we can find opportunities to improve. And so putting those into action. And I think those are a couple of the most unique things about Amazon, and really any company can further how they're thinking about things, how they're operating in their existing businesses.
Hey, John, thanks for coming on the program today. Everyone received a copy of your book. When you think about the 50.5 ideas becoming a digital leader, the title, what's the half idea?
Yeah, so, well, I hate to tease it here, but the half idea is really like, hey, here's 50 authentic ways that Amazon operates, what they believe in. But really, when we talk about transformation, right, it's about individual change. Like, what are we willing to do differently personally in order to get different results, right? And so the half idea is back to the reader, which is like, okay, so what are you willing to do? The half idea is back to you.
John, great to see you. Thanks again for coming to the program. We'll see you again very soon, I'm sure. And again, folks, if we have your address and or obviously email, you'll receive a copy of John's book.
Yep, thanks. And I look forward to being back down in San Diego soon.
Cool, see ya. Next up, we have Kevin Fleet. Kevin is the VP of Data Strategy for Informatica. Kevin, welcome to the program.
Hey, Hunter, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Great to see you. You're a bit of an internal, let's call it thought leader, let's call it genius around strategy and making data real for your clients at Informatica, being a leader in the whole data analytics space. If we know anything over the past 4 years, past 10 years, data matters, and understanding your customer matters, right? And that data is the new oil that really moves the economy along. Talk to us about the big picture. How do you go into a client, Kevin, and help them understand where they are current state, where the future state potential is, what's the big idea, and how they should begin to architect, think about a data map or a data strategy?
Yeah, great question. Thanks. At Informatica, we certainly view the world through a data-centric lens, right? Because that's what we do. And when I go and talk with clients, what I'm seeing more and more of is data is becoming a board level topic, right? And that was never the case in the past, right? Data was something that was this overhead. It was something we got to manage. Those technical guys will take care of it, right? And what's happening is, because of this focus now that so many companies have on digital transformation, the reality of digital transformation is that data is what fuels that. And so as soon as companies get into this idea of we're going to transform and become more digitally driven, they pull back the covers on what's going on in their enterprise, and they realize we really haven't invested in many cases the way we should have in this huge asset that we have, right? We have this huge asset within our organization, which is all the data about whether it's our internal operations or our customers or our supply chains and whatever industry you're in and what business you're in. You've got this huge asset there, yet over the prior decades, it really hasn't been invested in the way that you have invested in other assets like plants or manufacturing facilities and things like that. And so what's coming to light really in so many companies now is the need for a strategy around data. What are we doing with data? What are we doing to be like, we just heard about Amazon, right? What are we doing to be like Amazon? And that's now a board level conversation. And so what the conversations that I'm having with CIOs is really focused around data strategy and how do you develop a data strategy? What does a good one look like? And how do I ensure that it's connected to my business strategy? Because the best data strategies are really business strategies, and they're connected to business outcomes and business value.
When you think about it, 20 years ago, the real geniuses were talking about platforms and ecosystems. So you're not just buying one thing, you get locked into a platform ecosystem. When you think of business models, when you're working, it has to be passion, right?
It absolutely. I mean, I think, and especially in the data space, right? Having a data platform, a data management platform, that infrastructure that you can rely on, and it can scale and grow, and ideally, costs less per unit over time, not more. And the pitfall that so many companies, I think, have fallen into over time is they've developed point solution after point solution for every new analytic need or data requirement that they have. They spin up a new project and go off and build something new, rather than building that infrastructure, that platform that allows you to really scale up and become more efficient. And those needs are increasing more today than they ever have. So if we're, we saw that poll earlier around emerging needs that companies have, and the top one was AI, right? AI and machine learning. Well, what fuels AI is data. And if you don't have good handle on your data, then it's very difficult to have high value AI and business outcomes as a result.
Kevin, Informatica, and you must be in high demand post-pandemic. All of a sudden, everyone realizes that they really need to get their house in order, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we're seeing is the companies that we're seeing being able to respond quickly and pivot quickly based on changes in this business environment that we're now in. Those are the ones that had invested more heavily in having that kind of a data infrastructure. And now the ones that haven't are really being forced to look at what can we do to accelerate some of those plans around digital transformation and things that may have been on the back burner a little bit, but now have come to the forefront.
Kevin, what excites you most about the potential here to help companies that are in the bubble or in the middle, looking to innovate, looking to disrupt themselves, looking to really, compete effectively against these digitally born native companies?
Well, what's exciting to me is I've been in this business for 20 years, and what's exciting to me is the opportunity to really make some transformational changes happen inside of companies. I think the timing is right for people that have been kind of seeing this as being a potential solution. So I'm a San Diego guy. I was at Pfizer for many years prior to coming to Informatica, and I always struggled with how do I make the business case that I, as a technologist, intuitively I understand the value of what we could do and what we could unlock. And in Pfizer's case, it was allowing researchers around the world to work on drug projects together, scientists in labs all over the world that could work against the same set of information and do it in a really efficient and productive way. So for every company, the question is, how do you make those kind of transformational business cases to show that this investment into this asset that you have at your fingertips really is worth it? And I think that that's the exciting thing to me is I think that that's a conversation that the executive team and the board really wants to have now, because they want to understand, how can we be more like the Amazons and the Googles and Apples and those companies that really have shown the transformative nature and the value of what you can do if you really understand the information about yourself and about your customers.
Without restating what we've already covered, what does winning look like in this whole data architecture and governance and competing and staying up with or maybe beating Amazon? What does that look like? How do we get there?
Yeah. To me, what it looks like is I go and one of the questions, if I go in and chat with a CIO, one of the first things I'll ask, I'll say, so what's the one most valuable question about your business that you wish you could answer that you can't answer today? And it's always fascinating to see what direction that takes the conversation. And in every company, it's a little bit different. But what I would say is, can you answer that question, right? Can you really understand the most valuable aspects of the business that you're in? And I think those are the things that really are going to be game changers for organizations going forward.
Excellent question in here from Brian Shield, one of our guests from the Boston Red Sox. How do you convince a board or a governance committee that historically has gone against data to really embrace data?
I think you have to look squarely at what are the strategic business imperatives of your organization, right? What are the business strategies? And you've got to use that as that leverage point and tie that to your data strategy and the data investments that you need to make into making that happen. Because we can't talk in terms of technical language about, well, we've got to do master data and we've got to master our customer information and we've got to do data governance better. Those kinds of conversations that's not going to resonate with an executive team, right? What resonates is, how am I going to increase market share? How am I going to increase profitability? Those sorts of things, but you've got to tie it clearly right back to those investments in your data management infrastructure or in data and analytics.
Hey, Kevin, thanks so much for coming on the program. Brilliant presentation. Really genius. Thank you so much. And folks, when Informatica reaches out to you, agree to take a call, right? Or maybe even an hour Zoom design session, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so one last thing I'd leave you with is if folks are interested in getting more information about, how do I build a data strategy? We run workshops out of my advisory team, and we'd be happy to come in and spend a couple hours with anybody on the call and talk you through a framework of how to develop a data strategy of your own.
Excellent. Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate it. Bye.
Thanks,
now.
Hunter. Appreciate it.
Take care. Talk soon. Next up, we have reimagining the business, leading and innovating in radical times of change. And want to welcome the panelists up to the podium or the stage. And why don't we start with Bhavani? Bhavani is with Ameren. She's the Senior Vice President and Chief Digital Officer. Great to see you, Bhavani.
Good to see you too, Hunter. How are you?
I am great. Now, I'm going to try, but it's really tough. Your last name, and I don't want to... Would you enunciate it for us all?
Absolutely. It's Bhavani Amirthalingam.
Okay, Amirthalingam.
There you go. You got it.
Awesome. So talk to us about being a digital officer at Ameren. What does that look like? And how do they know they wanted a digital officer and not a CIO?
Great question. So I've been actually with Ameren since March of 2018. Been an absolutely insane journey. Just for context, for folks who don't know what Ameren does, we're in the energy space, electric gas operations, the utility industry, the energy space is going through significant change and transformation. The grid hasn't changed much in 100 years and has changed more in the last 5 and will change dramatically in the next 5 and 10. You think about renewables and, what's happening to that two-way flow of energy. If you think about the connected assets going on the grid, you think about evolving customer expectations, right, on how they want to engage from how they, the energy choices they want and how they manage their energy consumption. So that whole space is changing significantly. And so, part of the journey for Ameren was, to kind of bring those pieces together, right? And every industry has a definition for digital. And, when you think about our space, really is 2 key things. It's, the aspect of customer experience, and what we need to do to transform that. And the second is really around our grid, so think about the industrial IoT and critical infrastructure that we run. We have nuclear power plants, we have transmission, distribution operations, energy centers. And so it's really just the number of connected devices that are going on there, the apps, the analytics, the cyber posture that comes with both customer data as well as, grid operations. is really why they kind of wanted to expand beyond, the traditional thinking of, IT and, core CIO that supports, your base, call it back office functions, and technology that you deploy from that standpoint. So that's what, just to give a little background on this energy industry itself and the role.
Bhavani, it's hard for me to wrap my head around a CDO at essentially an energy company. What's different about the culture at Ameren that the CEO knew they wanted a dynamic chief digital officer to help drive and innovate the customer experience?
I think it's what's happening with the industry in general, right? And our customer expectations continue to evolve. There's a lot of change going on with respect to, if you think about the smart grid investments that are happening across the country, there's billions of dollars being invested in distribution automation. How, power gets restored today is very different from how it was, even 5-10 years ago. So as you think about the amount of technology there is, what used to be just traditional operational technology has a digital component to all of it. And so I think the foresight from our CEO's perspective was really, at Ameren, we put our customer at the center of our strategy. And as we saw customer expectations evolving, customer behaviors evolving, really, I was listening to the earlier conversation, you think about these customers are the same that are interacting with the Amazons and the, on how they shop, how they order pizza. They're expecting similar experiences when they engage on how they pay their bills, how they manage their energy, and so really just understanding customers and keeping the customer at the heart of our transformation was a huge driver, from that standpoint.
Stay with us, Bhavani. We'll circle back to you in just a minute. Next up, we have Coley Burke. Coley's the CRO at Zerto. Hey, Coley, a little bit about Zerto and a little bit about what you're seeing from your customers cross-industry in this pandemic.
Yeah. Hi, Hunter. Thanks for having me on the program. Always glad to be here. Hello, San Diego. So Zerto, I love that last conversation with Informatica and Kevin. Data matters. So we live squarely in the data space. So we love data, and Zerto is an organization that delivers a platform that aims at providing DR, data protection, and mobility. So we're all about your data. We know it is the currency, and our aim is to make sure you have continuous availability of your data, and more importantly, the business services it supplies. And we like to kind of talk about how we're the best to help you protect, place, and retain your data in such a way that helps you drive business value and innovation. So that's what Zerto does. What we've been seeing this year, Hunter, it's been pretty amazing. As you've heard me say before, I think the evolution of IT has just gone so rapid. It's grown so fast, and so many new ideas and the innovation that's occurring. But some of the thing that I've seen, and we've heard a little bit, on this call today, is that the IT and the business coming together behind a digital strategy aimed at digital transformation to meet the fast changing requirements of the business. That's like really been the interesting thing for me to see that come together of how does IT help the business accelerate, be more innovative, and what's IT's role in that. So sitting, squarely in that data world like we do and how we help protect and place it. That's a pretty unique thing to see that what we do around protection of data, placement of data it's kind of the new vogue. It's very important, and we're definitely seeing a lot of discussion, transformation, and innovation around not only what you're doing with data, but how do you make it accessible, protect it, and where do you place it to best kind of accelerate the speed of decision making.
Coley, what does winning look like for you and your clients?
For us this year, we've really focused in on listening to what the business is trying to do. So what winning looks like for us is really being a strategic partner to our customers. What are the challenges? What are the things that are being addressed because of the pandemic? How is the organization as a whole looking to transform? And we really want to be right there as a partner, helping get there faster through automation, through transformation of process and people, specifically around data protection. And as we do that, we like to say that winning is watching our customers achieve that transformation. It was kind of discussed on this call. I think John mentioned it, that if you're only now looking at transformation, you're probably behind the curve. So, we take a little bit of what we've learned as we've helped customers through that transformation, and those that need to still get through it, we're definitely there as that partnership to help them succeed and frankly, keep everything running the way it should.
Excellent, Coley. Hey, stay with us. I'll circle back to you in just a minute. Next up, we have Brian Shields. Brian is the VP of IT of the Boston Red Sox. Hey, Brian, great to see you, my friend. You're on mute.
Sorry, Hunter. Great to see you.
Hey, sorry, my condolences for the season. Sorry.
It happens. It happens. You can't win them all.
Well, I mean, it must be an unbelievable letdown. I mean, you guys 3 years ago were unstoppable, right? 2 years ago, unstoppable. And then all of a sudden, it's like, it's almost like on any given Sunday, anything can happen, right?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think sports in general, I think as most folks know, you know, you go through cycles. You know, you sign folks to contracts and they're guaranteed and other things, and it's challenging. It's a real complex process to try to field a successful team year after year. You know,
Brian, I kind of joke, you and I and our mutual friend Mark Polanski, us being from New York, you being from New England / Atlanta, and I mean, what can we learn from truly one of the most winningest clubs in the world, the Boston Red Sox, regarding the importance of winning, building a culture of team, being a culture of winning? What can we learn about that and apply it to being a better IT leader and leading up, out, and down?
Yeah, you know, I was thinking something Coley just said a moment ago, which kind of resonated with me, as well as some of your other guests this morning too, which is, you know, I think we try to have a multi-year plan. I think too often companies, as I think John may have said earlier, have almost like a tactical, almost like organically growing plan. You know, it's like every year is a modest refinement on the year before. And I think it, you know, and I think this is what also fuels innovation. It's like, I mean, I tend to think of it as a series of these concentric circles where my current year is in the middle, and I'll go out 2 years after that, and, you know, with a sense toward like, where do I aspire to be? Where do I think we as a company need to be? And because as someone said, maybe Coley a moment ago said, like, you can't just do these things overnight. You can't just wake up and say, we're now digitally aware, or, you know, these things just don't kind of, you can't turn things on a dime. You can't invest on a dime. And I think John said it earlier, which is really well, which is you have to have the infrastructure in place. You know, when you have a successful ball club or organization, I think it starts with kind of, you know, what your core nucleus look like, you know, and we basically try to staff a little bit like our ball club. Like, we've got a core nucleus of what we think are some all-stars and hopefully a couple Hall of Famers. And, you know, we kind of build around that with, you know, team players and supplement with consultants or free agents, and hopefully have a farm system, you know, and things like that. So I think it's a combination of a staffing model and I guess a vision toward the future that you're constantly revising, you know, as the needs of business change.
I had a chance to meet Brian Cashman recently. I'm sure you guys study a little bit about what the Yankees are up to. I asked him one question: how do you lead? He said, by data. So yeah. You had the question around data. How seriously do you take data at the Red Sox? Yeah,
it's a great question. I mean, in our world, you almost have to break data into 2 to 3 parts. There's sort of data about players in baseball and statistics analytics. There's kind of data about running a business and, you know, having 40,000, you know, people in your stands every night during the summer months. And then obviously data about employees and how we kind of, you know, run a good business internally and make sure we're doing a good job. And I think, you know, on the business side of it, you know, we've moved to Google GCP exclusively this year. I'd like to say that we had the forethought of knowing that this pandemic was coming, but we were pretty fortunate that by mid-July, we had transformed over to our new enterprise data environment, kind of now on GCP. And, you know, we migrated everything to Salesforce over this year as well, and a host of other things. So I feel like, I think John may have said earlier, like, I feel like we've got these building blocks that we now feel really, really good about, you know, because without those, you know, everything's a challenge, you know, and so I feel like we've got these blocks that will allow us to kind of now start to make much more dramatic, you know, steps in the right direction.
Excellent. Great. Stay with us. I'll circle back to you in just 1 minute. Next up, we have Maury Cupitt. Maury is the Vice President of Solutions Architect at Sonatype. Maury, welcome to the program.
Hey, great to be here.
Great to see you. Hey, Maury, a little bit about Sonatype. People might not know exactly the space that you're in and how relevant and important it is relative to this current environment we're in.
Yeah, it's interesting because for the past almost 10 to 12 years, we've been focused solely on accelerating application delivery, accelerating projects. So we're the creators and stewards of Maven Central. It's the largest open source repository for components. And what we're helping companies do is take these open source components, use the best of the best, and build on the infrastructure, right? Build on data, build on automation. So all the innovation that's happening in companies is not being generated in the enterprise from within that enterprise, right? We're building the components. We're taking like 90% of the application that we build in the enterprise is made up of open source components. So what we're doing is helping development teams and the enterprise pick the right components, develop fast, understand the risk that's involved in using these components, and really putting the process in place so they can do it quickly, right? We can't wait for 6 to 8 weeks for an approval process on some component that we need to be innovative. We need to be able to get that right now. So that's where we fall.
You know, Maury, within the enterprise architecture stack, be a little bit more specific. How do you help on that, the roadmap from current state to future state?
Yeah, when we're looking at future state, we're looking at the way that we're building the applications, right? How can I speed up? We've done a couple of these, Hunter, where we've talked about speed, we've talked about accelerating delivery. I love that you guys are talking about metrics today because you're looking at metrics and data and value stream, right? I'm looking at these metrics and how do I deliver value and how do I deliver it quickly? So at the enterprise level, it's really about, again, accelerating that application delivery so I can focus on the value that I'm providing to my customers rather than just the people and the processes, right? Those are important, but are all of those actually contributing to more value at the customer end?
I mean, when you think about this pandemic, if it did nothing else, it accelerated the digital importance by 10x, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not dialed into your customers, how do you help people, how do you help enterprises really modernize their whole go-to-market on the front end in terms of being customer focused, customer centric, and help the whole enterprise align accordingly?
Yeah, it's building the products and delivering the products and the features when the customer needs it and where the customer needs it, right? For the foundation, for the fundamentals, that's another thing that you and I've talked about before. It's like building on the fundamentals and building that foundation so that we can put those the processes in place and speed up. But it is about now I can focus on delivering software that matters to my customers, right? I love the notion of what is the customer need in the power company. What I don't actually need from my power company is a monthly email telling me how much more I spend in heating and electricity every month. It's like, I know that. I want to be able to check a box. So it's like every customer is a little bit different. So you're bringing this this expertise around your customer and not having to focus on all the tools and all the components that you're using to build that. You can focus on what you need to focus on, which is the customer.
Well, I'll circle back to you here in just a minute. Let's go back to Bhavani. Hey, Bhavani, when you think about leading and reimagining the business and leading and innovating in times of radical change, what's changed just in the last 7 months post-pandemic? We're in it now. We're entering the 8th or 9th month. What's changed in terms of your leadership style, your passion, your courageous leadership style, your authentic leadership style? What's changed or been accentuated in this whole pandemic environment?
Yeah, well, good question. If I reflect on that, I'd say probably a few things, right? First of all, you can't rely on your, walk-arounds, right? Like I'd love to be able to walk through, different teams, check on people. I mean, something you really have to, and it's just the nature of when you're all physically around, that you get to do every day. And it's something that you now need to be very deliberate about, right? Otherwise, you can catch yourself going from, one video call to another, and, and you're just fully consumed and really haven't had the opportunity to connect with your people. And so I think it's being super deliberate about, making time to check in on how, your teams are doing, so I think there's an aspect of that you just have to be really deliberate about. I do think there is an aspect of your people, most organizations, for us, we've got 60% of our workforce remote and we've got 40% in the field, in energy centers working every day. And so it's really thinking of that hybrid, setup and being able to lead, with that mindset, I think is really important in terms of how you enable, how you engage. And I also think there's just a lot going on. There's the pandemic and there's so much going on around us right now that it just creates, this environment of anxiety. There's probably a lot people are dealing with. And I think it's really important more than ever before, that we, show a sense of calm, right, for our people, bring a sense of calm for our team. So I think that really is very important for me, from that standpoint. I do now a lot more bite-sized communication just compared to 7 months ago. Yeah, I do weekly virtual connects with the extended organization. And I think so it's really just figuring out how your style of engagement needs to, to check and adjust, right? There's a lot that's changed around us. And then also the customer element, our customers are going through a lot of similar changes. And so how do we make sure, we're thinking about those elements in terms of how the products and services we're building out, the experiences we're building out, the other piece that when I think about just leadership, how you're, thinking about it, it's not just, internally how you think about your organization, but externally how your customers are experiencing, during this time.
It's really doing those check-ins with your whole team is so vitally important. Being a great storyteller. Has it been one of the most challenging, but potentially the most interesting and exciting times to be a tech leader?
I absolutely think so, because you said it earlier, right? The joke is like, who accelerated the digital transformation, like the CEO, the chief digital officer, or really, or the pandemic, right? Who did COVID accelerate it? So there's just been a lot of, I'd say, adoption just, as the necessity came in. And we've also seen a lot of creativity that from our, or from our field, for instance, that they've, taken to technology very differently from that standpoint. So I do think there's been an extremely positive aspect. Same thing with customers, I think either Maury or Brian indicated it, right? Just, customers that probably didn't want to engage previously in a certain way, right, are now engaging digitally. And so I think those are all key elements as well.
Isn't it a different time, right, more than ever, that people are really wanting and looking for a different voice of leadership, one of authenticity, one of empathy, one of sincerity, because we're all living, most of us living where we work, working where we live, many, and a real humanistic point of view, a person of a leadership style of caring and being nice.
I think it's really important, right? Because people are really, I'll tell you what my personal experience is. On one hand, we've got this huge shift we had to make within days. And then, we haven't taken our foot off the gas on, the acceleration and the transformation that we're going on. And so, you have teams executing with passion when they're also dealing with probably a lot of personal challenges. And so it's really important, that you keep things in context and create safe spaces for your teams to be able to share what's going on. Because like you said, there is no start and end to, your day, and, everything is kind of very commingled. It already was in a very digital world. And I think now it's just kind of taken it to a completely different level. So just being really genuine, authentic, I think is extremely important. Care, right? I think extremely important.
Hey, Bhavani, thanks so much for coming on the summit, the program here today. Our friends from San Diego really wanted people from out of area across the country, and you really delivered. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome. Hey, Coley, you're up next. When you think about like leadership style, your leadership style, you have a team around you, you have clients you're communicating with every day. Do you notice a different tenor, a different tone? People really want a different voice, right?
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And, for me, I have the privilege of leading a global sales organization. And like Bhavani said, you definitely have to, think a little differently, empathy, certainly. And I think for us and for everybody, and Bhavani just mentioned it, burnout and fatigue becomes real. We're all working so hard and so aggressively pushing, and you have not let up. And I think for all of us, even as leaders, we go through the burnout and the fatigue. And, so for us, it's interesting to kind of see as we try to make sure that, again, we're helping our customers. And I kind of spoke to this. We really are trying to listen a lot more. And, you're right. Our customers are asking us for a different approach. Again, I'm very specific about being a strategic partner because we're right there in it with you, with our customers, with anybody, our partners, trying to all figure out not only how do we get through this together. We talk a lot about resilience at Zerto. Zerto, kind of sells resilience, make it continuous, but also what's your personal and professional resilience. And it's interesting for us as we engage with our customers, it has changed. It actually has slowed down a little bit. There's a little bit more thoughtfulness that goes into, okay, what are we doing? How are we going about it? How are we challenging what we've done? And, Zerto, how can you help us? So that's actually been a really interesting thing after a long career in IT to see the way we are engaging with customers. It absolutely has changed. And you feel it more from the partnership standpoint. It's like, let's, if the vendor comes in with the right approach and was willing to partner and set aside what we are trying to do as the vendor, but more listen to what the customer is trying to do and what you all are trying to achieve, I find that engagement is more productive. It leads to a better outcome for everybody. And you really begin to push on what can we accomplish together. And that's where we sit. So, my leadership style is all built around that, not only within my team, but more so how we push that out into our customer base and our partner base to make sure that we are doing the right things to be empathetic to what our customers are going through, because that's the most important thing right now, to really care and be part of it, not just try to push one agenda. So we really go at the partnership side, and that's been the fun part, I think, the last 7 months. We're all in it together.
Coley, hey, thanks for your support, Zerto support, your support. Great job, brilliant, right on point, and appreciate it. We'll follow up soon.
Thanks, Hunter.
Yeah. Hey, next up, Brian. Brian, you were early on. We talked about this years ago about the customer, and you were so futuristic in your idea. You go, Hunter, I really want to know my customer from the time they leave their home to the time they return home. And it seemed like such an out there idea, and it's back to the ecosystem or the platform system. How are you visiting the whole customer journey now that you've been digital? We've been digital now for 9 months.
Yeah, we've probably been digital longer than that, but I think it's taken on a whole new level of emphasis, and I think as Bhavani had said, sometimes, you need a little kick in the ass to sort of, help you sort of accelerate in certain areas because, we all struggle with, we have like too much work to get done with the amount of budget and staffing and things like that. So it does come down to, as Coley had said, priorities. And I do think priorities have shifted. We clearly have shifted toward a much more data-centric, information-rich, and very heavily consumer-focused sort of approach. And I think the other one variable I would throw in there is employee productivity. There's a huge emphasis right now on how do we make our employees more productive. I think historically, employee productivity sort of took like a back seat to a lot of other things because it wasn't sexy and things like that. But, in companies where, more is expected, from less in certain cases, I think it's pivotal. I think the consumer one, as you pointed out, is sort of first and foremost. As I said before, we made some of these really key infrastructural investments, but a lot of it now is this whole journey. I think what's interesting about these things, my dad now orders food in on his phone, which I would have swore would have been impossible for him to have done in the past. And watching these transformations, my daughter showed me how to do these new features on my new iPhone release, and she's 11. And so I'm it's remarkable. So I think everyone's expecting things, especially in sports entertainment, a new world and kind of returning to that kind of environment. We want to make first and foremost, make sure it's a safe environment for everybody. We want to make sure it's as touchless, cashless as we can. And those require big changes. We were an organization that wasn't fully digital on ticketing. We will be come opening day next year. That wouldn't have happened without something like this. We're changing. I was on the call this morning, a number of calls about mobile food ordering and things. Those were slow to evolve, especially in a facility, especially in a stadium like a ballpark like Fenway, which was built in 1912. Those are, space and social distancing and Fenway Park are not are a little bit mutually exclusive in some ways. So I kind of view 2021 as the great year of experimentation. I think we know that folks will kind of return in a bit of a kind of crawl, walk, run manner. I think we hope it'll be a little bit quicker than that, but who knows the way things are evolving. And I think what we're kind of using this as an opportunity to see how far we can sort of, push the envelope a little bit here on sort of creating that transformational digital experience, where appropriate for fans and maximizing We're overhauling all of our, we're out 5G now. We're, version 6 on our Wi-Fi we're implementing over the winter type of thing. Yeah, installing winter Wi-Fi in the winter, it doesn't score any points with your team, but it does with fans when they come to the ballpark. And a tremendous number of kind of digital initiatives, which I'm optimistic will really be a pretty kind of interesting experience for fans when they return.
Hey, Brian, great to have you on the program. Thanks so much for coming on. Again, the San Diego friends wanted to hear from folks from out of area and thought leaders like yourself. So we need a prediction. Who's going to win the World Series?
Well, I've got to, I guess I'm assuming it's going to be the Dodgers this time, because my good friends tell me at the Dodgers tell me like this is the year, and they won't be denied. So we'll see if that happens that way. But I have my fingers crossed a little bit on Tampa, admittedly.
Great to see you. Thanks again.
Take care, everyone.
Excellent. Hey, Maury, kind of final word. Best time ever to be a tech professional, to be in this industry, and how are you helping your clients really reimagine, reinvent the future?
Yeah, it really is, right? The best time. I have the ability now to slow down. You and I've talked about slowing down to speed up. I've been able to slow down and help our customers with, again, the fundamentals that they need to actually go faster and innovate. Bhavani mentioned just leadership style. I've been able to slow down and spend more time with my team, right? My team is a high-speed enterprise field SE organization that now has to sit at home and not travel and has to learn fast. So how are we actually changing that environment? How are we doing enablement, and how are we forcing kind of end-of-day events, right? So we'll spend two days a week as a team. Anybody that can join, and helping drive innovation that way. But again, for our customers, it's really now is the time to innovate. Brian actually made my day, because 2021 is not back to normal. 2021 is back to something really cool. And I think we're in a position now to reimagine what that is and what everybody's experience is. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Hey, Maury, thanks so much for coming on the program. Thanks again for Sonatype supporting the HMG model and format. Folks, what a great session. Bhavani, thank you. Brian, Coley, and Maury, thank you. When the folks from Sonatype and Zerto do reach out to you, at least take the call and set up a 20-minute meeting. At least we can do to really pay them back for their support of the summit and the SIM chapter. Next up, we have Tony Leng. Tony's going to lead. Thanks, guys. Tony's going to lead what it takes to become boardroom ready, a hot topic for us here at HMG Strategy. Folks, you want to be part of this panel. This is an amazing panel. Tony, welcome. Take it away.
Thank you, Hunter. And thank you so much for the panelists who are joining me. I really appreciate that. What I want to do is have the panelists introduce themselves and then move quickly into the set of questions. And the way we're going to do it is this. The panelists are going to kind of tell you who they are and tell you which boards they're on, and then we're going to start our questioning. So let's run through it. Colin, Jeanette, Daphne, David, if we can run through in that order, who you are, what boards you're on. Thanks so much.
Alrighty, thank you, Tony, and hello, everyone. My name is Colin Black. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at CrowdStrike, Section 16 officer, and on the board of CrowdStrike, so an internal member of the board.
Hi, everyone. Jeanette Horan, and I'm a former IBM executive, currently sit on the boards of Nokia in Finland and Wolters Kluwer in the Netherlands.
Hey, everybody. My name is Daphne Jones. I am a retired senior vice president at GE Healthcare, and I sit on the board of AMN Healthcare, Barnes Group, and Masonite International. It's good to be here.
Good morning. My name is Dave Pendarvis. I work for ResMed, a medical device company here in San Diego, and I'm the chief counsel and the chief administrative officer there. So I get involved in board work there, working with the ResMed board, including board searches. I'm also today on the board of the WD-40 company, which is based here in San Diego. And before that, I was on the board of Sequenome, a molecular genetics company also based here in San Diego.
Great. Thank you all for that. Now, the audience today are mostly technologists. So let me ask you this, kind of what are the skill sets that people need today to be effective on boards? In other words, kind of what do boards want running in the same order? Off you go.
Alrighty, so certainly from my perspective, it really depends on, you know, the company and the position and the time of the company. So for example, you know, CrowdStrike went through recent IPO. What we need at that point is different to somebody, say, like a Nokia, which is in a, you know, state of steadiness, shall we say. So it really depends on the position of the company at the time, but I do think they need expertise. You know, we're particularly, you know, right now we see things like cyber is very high on the agenda with people and compliance out there. And, you know, but I think as a board member, one of the things you need to be very focused on is, you know, what you can bring to that and playing your position on the board, frankly.
Thanks. Jeanette?
So I would say that first and foremost, the role of the board member is fiduciary responsibility. So they certainly start out where they're looking for people who are seasoned business leaders, but then within each board, you know, the individual members are recruited for specific levels of expertise. And one of the things that we're finding today is that just about every company is a technology company, regardless of the business they're in. And I think that many of them are realizing they don't have a lot of technology expertise on the board, so they're looking out for that. And while there is certainly the traditional technology requirements, I was on a 4-hour audit committee meeting this morning, and we had a lot of discussion about IT controls and cybersecurity and things like that. But they're also looking about how technology can be used to transform the business. And I think that's really is one of the biggest things that companies are looking for, is that transformational expertise.
So you got to be a technologist, but you need to be a leader and a business person at the same time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Daphne?
Yeah, I would say with Jeanette. Hi, Jeanette. Good to see you again today. We were together yesterday. Yeah, I think exactly right. You're a business leader, especially as CIOs today. We are no longer those partners that just kind of follow the business. We help co-create the business. So we understand manufacturing, we understand customer loyalty, and we understand talent. So understanding what it takes to make a business run is important. And of course, the digital aspect is really what kind of rounds it out. But you got to have integrity. You have to understand about risk and controls and things like that, but you got to know the business.
So David, I mean, you believe strongly that you just have to be a technologist and nothing else. Is that right?
Good thing you were listening to the prep call, Tony. No, in fact, Tony encouraged us to be a little controversial, and so I'll be a little controversial and say most boards are not looking for a CIO as a board member, and that skill set may not be the skill set to get you on a board. What they're looking for instead is a strong business skill set, which you've heard from everybody else, that has a technology mindset. So that technology expertise that you have in the audience is hugely valuable, but it's not enough. So ResMed, for example, has been on a digital transformation journey by embedding chips in our medical devices that communicate, so that we've got tens of millions of devices every day that communicate back to a server that downloads into a patient engagement app. We're very much involved with technology and digital transformation. And when we went out to look for our board searches over the last 5 years, we ended up with a woman who was engaged in consumer technology for digital consumer-based tech. We ended up with a guy who runs a IT company based in Europe. And we ended up with others who were very technologically savvy, but bring more to the table. So those basic business skills, also diversity in terms of geographic nature. We have board members from Singapore, board members from Europe. That knowledge of the business that says that this is not someone who's just a technology expert. Listen, we hire consultants when we need a technology consultant. What we want are well-rounded business people. The WD-40 board is very, very geographically diverse, very much diverse in terms of consumer technology, as well as the basic business skills. And that's what people are looking for, is that well-rounded individual who brings that something extra. So the CIO experience is a something extra, but it's got to be the cherry on top of the sundae.
Got it. So Jeanette, why did they hire you to Nokia and Wolters Kluwer? What did you bring to the table that was particular?
So for Nokia, I would say Nokia is actually going through a lot of transformation. I kind of smile when Colin says it's a steady state company. We've got a new chairman, a new CEO, and a new CFO this summer. So I wouldn't exactly call it steady state. But Nokia has been operating in largely the communication service provider market, which is slow growing to say the least. And so if they wanted to grow, they really needed to grow into the enterprise. And I had two sets of experiences. One was as a developer, producer of products that were sold to enterprise customers, was kind of, number one. But then I had experience as the enterprise CIO that I was able to, if you like, kind of sort of sit on both sides of that. And so that was the thing that they really liked, is really about how do you help them enter into that enterprise market and really kind of understand the enterprise market some more. But I will say, having said that, as they've gone through a big merger with Alcatel-Lucent, I've probably spent as much time on ERP systems and back office integration as I have, kind of on the enterprise market.
Right. Daphne, switching over to you, you've kind of made being on a board and getting on a board, into a business now. So here we've got a captive audience of a bunch of CIOs. What are the 3 or 4 things that people really need to do to become sort of board ready? And I'll let you lead and then let the others pick up on that, but kind of lead us through maybe what you did and what recommendations you have for CIOs who are kind of business focused executives currently to prepare themselves to be board ready.
Sure. Well, you kind of said, let's be controversial. So number one, I'd say get a new set of friends. A lot of times the friends that you have today are those that want to get on boards as well. And so now you're competing with them. So get a new set of friends, transform your ecosystem to those people that are going to be good references for you. They're your CEOs of the past, your CFOs, your other business leaders, but they're also going to be folks who may also be tapped on to be on a board. And they maybe have too many boards that they're working on. So they would reference you. So your ecosystem needs to be transformed. Number 2, know your superpower. What are you really good at? Are you good at Industry 4.0? Are you good at marketing? Are you good at only technology? Know your superpower as it relates to your skill. And then make sure you know how to read a P&L. That's going to be really important. Brush up on your math. So those are the 3 things that I would recommend that you do. But you first have to kind of know what a board is. So the whole demystification, everybody says, I want to be on a board, but do you really know what a board does and what a board is and what the contributions that you have to make and all that? So if you do that and understand what the board is, I think you'll be ready, more ready than not.
And there are ways of doing that. There's the NACD. I know you run a group that teaches people. Coco Brown in Athena group has a group that's focused on this. So there are ways of getting up to speed. David, what would you add to what Daphne said?
Well, I'd say, first of all, try to get on private company boards. So San Diego, for example, has got a big, Connect is an obvious example. There are other companies that are involved with startup companies. They need guidance. Those are frequently going to be unpaid positions. And so you're going to be volunteering, or they're going to be, very lightly paid. It's going to be a lot of time, but that's a way to get started with private companies that really need some guidance. Get involved with nonprofits. You learn how boards operate, how governance operates. What's the difference between supervising and directing strategy versus executing? It's a key differential between being on the board. I'd echo Daphne's point of make sure you're a well-rounded business person, drive value in the job you've got today, look for opportunities in the job you have today to broaden your skill set and focus on things beyond what you might think your technical remit is today, so that then you're in position. So those would be the main things I would say is try and just go do it.
Was that me hearing David go funny, or was that for everybody? Can we pick up a little bit? Colin, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I really like Daphne's comment about, know your superpower. I definitely believe that's a very, key point is, understand, your superpower and where that fits into the board. But I also think that, a large part of it is also, what do you bring as a human aspect to it? We're here as people struggling with the problems. And so, how do you help based on your experience and who you are as a person to help that board also get through? And it's also very much about influencing, right? You've got to be able to influence people properly. Otherwise, it just becomes extremely difficult.
Jeanette, any comment, anything to add to that?
So I would say on the basis of kind of, change of friends, I think that sort of your new friends should definitely include people who currently sit on boards, because I think that they often, will get calls. It's always harder to get your first board than it is to get the second or third. And so if people are kind of overboarded, and they know you're looking, they can often be sources of referral. And especially if you know anybody who's on the nominating committee for a board, they're great people to know because, they can put your name forward a lot of times.
So if you're a really effective executive, in other words, let's call it you have a modus operandi or a style of command, control, take charge, get stuff done, and this is how you've sort of marketed yourself as a senior executive, how well does that fit from a board perspective, and is that a great MO for you to use as you sell yourself to be a board member? Daphne, start with you on that one.
I'd say yes and no. I think it's a skill that you're going to have to know when to apply it. There are things that a board has to take charge in, like CEO succession planning or the compensation of executive architecture, if you will. But there's some things that the board has to just partner with the executives on. And then there's some things that the board should totally stay away from. And so I think those skills that you have need to be applied, but need to be applied carefully.
Right, David, and then Jeanette, I'd love your feedback on that too.
Yeah, I agree with Daphne in the sense that knowing how to execute is hugely important. And so you recognize good execution, you recognize the need for good execution, and you can communicate to folks how they might better execute. But when you're on a board, you are not the executor. In fact, in many ways, you get in the way of execution if you try to execute. The CEO of WD-40 is fond of talking about a board member might come in and say, have you thought about that wall being pink? Just as an offhand comment. And the next time you walk in the room, the whole place is pink. That's not adding value. So what you want to do is understand that boards act at a collegial level. They're sort of sounding boards for the CEO. They're frequently sounding boards for the executives, and you can mentor. But it's really more about trying to provide oversight and sort of guide rails and systems than it is about directing. Most people who are directive in the boardroom setting have short-lived board careers.
Right, Jeanette?
So the best piece of advice I ever had was nose in, hands out. Which is, you need to obviously understand a lot about the business. You need to understand where it's going, but you can't operate the business. You can't tell people what to do. You have to ask questions and, make suggestions and sort of recognize that your role as a board member, when it comes to the business strategy of the company, is really as an advisor. And, ultimately the board does get to, hire and fire the CEO and, figure out how to pay the executives, which are really the only controls that you have. So, you got to learn how to listen well and ask probing questions.
And Colin, anything you want to add to that mix?
Not really, frankly. I think that's been well articulated there by Daphne and Jeanette.
Great. So what I want to do is quickly talk about, as current board members, what are the things that are of greatest concern to you currently at this time? What are the big things that are challenging your board right now? And do you think that any members of the current audience can be part of the solution to that or not? Daphne, why don't we start with you?
I'm going to start to feel like I'm one of your favorites. I'm always doing first here. God forbid. So the boards are, short of being releasing information that I shouldn't have released, I would just say in general, boards are concerned about things like tripping their covenant, right? Because it's about cash generation and cash conservation in the times of COVID. So how can a CIO help make sure that we're doing those things both to drive more cash generation with customer facing activities and revenue generation things, but also being much more efficient and driving efficiencies so that the people inside the company can actually do work much faster and much cheaper, still with high quality. So they're worried about debt, they're worried about cash. They're also worried about clearly the amount of cyber attacks that are happening, whether it be whaling, big phishing or all those different things. And so the role of the CIO and the CISO is clearly to try to do more to do, whether it's, I call it just in time. Some people call it zero trust, but I call it just in time trust. But doing those things that are going to be critical so that the board can be assured that the crown jewels within the company are really well protected. And whether you have to do a zone defense or a man-to-man defense, you got to do what you got to do to make sure the crown jewels are protected. So those are two things I was worried about.
Colin, do you have any reflections on what Daphne just said about the security aspects?
Yeah, as a security company, for us, security is number one, right? Last thing you need as a security company is a breach. You're kind of out of business at that point, right? So we're highly focused on that type of thing. But, we're a relatively new public company. We're just over a year now. So we're very focused on the compliance side of things and learning that integration with Wall Street and how you manage them and they manage you and building that relationship with them. And I think one of the other things that's uppermost in a lot of boards' minds right now is diversity and the current mandate in California for board mix and such like. So it's also dealing with those type of situations right now.
Great. David, what do you think?
I think I agree with Daphne on the short-term focus a lot of companies have had. Many companies are largely through that. And they're no longer worried about survival. But when survival becomes at risk, that's the first, second, and third thing a board worries about. Once you get beyond that, boards are worried today about how do they become a more digital company. I mean, ResMed's really gone through that digital transformation, and we continue to be at it. And so it's how do we stay at the forefront of it? WD-40 used the whole pandemic to recognize the need to build on their online shopping experience, and they've made a lot of great strides in that area. So I think becoming a more digital data-focused company and having that not just be, here's our digital assets, but how do we use them to both transform our business and to build competitive advantage and to win in a future world, that is squarely in the seat of the CIO, or ought to be. And winning in that digital transformation is what most boards are worried about longer term.
Right. I want to thank the panelists. I'm going to leave Jeanette to have the final word, but we're coming up toward the end of our time. So thank you, Dave, Daphne, and Colin. Jeanette, final words to you, and then we'll sign off.
I think the boards right now have clearly been focused on how to get through the current pandemic, but I think that it's really looking ahead to the future and what happens after that and how are we really going to reset our business and grow our business. Short term, yeah, it's about conserving cash. Longer term, it's about getting to growth again.
Thank you all very much for playing. Appreciate it.
Excellent. Great job, Tony. Thanks, everyone. Great to see you all. Take care. Bye now. Hey, next up, we have the HMG Tech Innovation Lab, Innovation versus Invention. Welcome, panelists, to the program. Why don't we start with Gary Drummond? Gary's the CEO of 802 Secure. Gary?
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks for inviting me to join the panel today. I'm just wondering why my screen has gone funny. You can't see me, can you?
Barely can see you.
Okay, let me see if I can quickly fix this.
Maybe, why don't you turn your camera off and try to fix that? And Nikki might be able to help you in the background via a secure chat. And why don't we open it up with Evan Reiser. Evan's CEO of a very cool, hot new company in the security space, Abnormal Security. Evan, great to see you.
Great to see you, Hunter. Thanks so much for having me in the program.
Of course.
I'll give a quick intro.
Yeah, please.
So my name is Evan Reiser. I've been an basically enterprise software entrepreneur for a decade. The founder and CEO of a company called Abnormal Security. And Abnormal Security is basically a next generation platform for email security. We use AI machine learning to protect enterprise against targeted attacks. So things like phishing, malware, supply chain compromise, fraud, and business email compromise, which is the #1 cybercrime in the world. And so we're a pretty small company, but I think we're probably one of the fastest growing cybersecurity startups right now. We got about a a dozen Fortune 500 companies using the product today. And yeah, super excited to be here. Thanks for having me, Hunter.
So basically, you're between your A round, B round. Where are you, and who are your backers?
Yeah, so the backers we've announced are Greylock Partners, and we're basically a Series B company.
Awesome, congratulations. And Monty's here on the program. Monty, welcome to the program. Monty Knode is Director of Customer Success at Horizon 3 AI, a very cool company, and a former military veteran. Thanks for your service.
You bet, Hunter. Thank you very much. Yeah, Horizon 3 AI, I'm the Director of Customer Success. Much like what Evan was talking about, we use AI and automation to be able to, and we prioritize vectors over vulnerabilities so that we can turn the map around, something the military calls, to be able to give that op4 or that adversary perspective on a network. So that's how we're going out there and helping companies to be able to fix what matters a little bit quicker. We've had our seed, and we're looking to go into Series A early this next year.
Great job. Thanks, Monty. Good to have you here. Gary, you're back and we can see you. You're not a part of the Blue Man Group now. Great, congratulations. Welcome.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Drummond. I'm the founder, CEO of 802 Secure. I specialize in wireless or next generation wireless security. And with 80% of new IoT deployments being wireless, not wired, wireless has fast become the new network and the new attack surface. So we've built a cloud-based machine learning platform that allows us to detect new threats from cellular as well as broad spectrum. And we have multiple deployments across critical infrastructure, healthcare, and so forth. And we recently had a seed round, and we're now ready for our A round.
Excellent. Congratulations. Glad you're here. Hey, next up we have Phil Richards. Phil is the CISO for Avante, one of the outliers of today's panel. Phil, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Hunter. It's good to be here.
Yeah, where are you based, Phil? Where are you based?
Sorry?
Where are you based?
I'm actually based in Salt Lake City. The Avante program is based in South Jordan, Utah, and we're really focused on kind of IT, making IT better for organizations. We have products in the service management space, asset management, user endpoint management, and security spaces of patch and endpoint delivery and endpoint management as well.
Phil, the whole topic and the idea of the panel is around innovation versus inventor, right? When you think about how Avante helps innovate for your clients or inventor, what's your take on that? How do you help your clients secure the enterprise?
Well, I think it's an interesting question, and you kind of have to have both. You got to have a little bit of both. You need to have a culture. Invention is taking something out of nothing, or starting with nothing and turning it into something. Going from I'm starting with kind of from scratch, from bare bones. Whereas innovation always seems to be, we need to build a better mousetrap. We need to focus on making things better. And for companies like those of ours on the panel, we actually have customers that pay for our ability to innovate as a normal part of our process. Like a lot of software companies, we have maintenance fees and those kind of things. Those fees go directly to funding new work and making the product better. Our customers expect new releases of product. They expect not only bug fixes, but they expect features to improve, and that's innovative. We actually have customers paying directly for innovative services. So clearly, innovation is such an important component for especially in the software development field, but in a lot of fields, it's absolutely critical.
Excellent. Okay, stay with us. I'll be back to you in just a minute. Hey, Evan, when you think about abnormal security, you had some incredible traction with large companies. What's going on in the enterprise architecture, the increased threat landscape post-pandemic, and what specifically does abnormal deliver?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think when we think about innovation, right, it's good to understand what are some of the what is the state of the market in the world today, and then what are some of kind of the tailwinds, right, that are causing change. And so I know that 30% of you guys earlier today said that email security was a specific technology need, And I think if I look at the market today, right, email security is the #1 attack vector. There's more money lost from business email compromise than every other cybercrime all combined. And so there's definitely something in that market, right, that's like not working. And so when I think about then like the tailwinds, right, that are causing, innovation, I think we all know that like, digital transformation is happening faster than ever, right? Every enterprise application is moving to the cloud. I think, in our world, right, customers are looking for some sort of cloud native, replacement for their first generation, maybe on-premise focused device. And the second maybe big trend is, that affects all of us is COVID-19. The nature of work is changing, right? People aren't working at conference rooms, right? They're using these digital communication collaboration tools. The way we apply it to our market is that, just the importance of, integrity and security of email communication is higher than ever. And just the way people work is changing. I think kind of like the final trend, right, that's driving innovation, right, is just the rise of, AI and ML. And, I think a lot of people have seen gaps between, what the promise of AI versus like what they actually get in the results. But there are some problems, right, that do require, machine learning and AI. And, for us, like to stop attacks that have never been seen before and bypass other solutions, right, we need to go and, apply it, use kind of real technologies there to make success. So, we've just seen like, when it comes to, I think the difference in, your question earlier about invention versus innovation, like we try not to invent things, right, where we come up with our good ideas. We try to really listen to the market. And what I hear from customers is, those are the big problems today. It's phishing, supply chain compromise, vendor impersonation, executive impersonation. So we try to kind of look at all those trends and we listen to our customers and we try to, build technology that helps people solve those problems and replace, some of the, solutions that, came from 10, 20 years ago.
Excellent. Thanks, Evan. We'll circle back to you in just a minute. Hey, Monti, you're up next. When you think of the whole idea of versus innovation, what comes to mind?
So I think the way Phil described it was pretty well, and we got to have a conversation with a few others on exactly what that differentiation is. And I got to tell you, I don't know that the differentiation matters. What the CIOs really got to do, and what they've been encouraging in the past, is being open to it. And having been a former CIO and COO, I think what you can't just do is be open. You've got to encourage it, and that really goes to that culture of risk averseness. Right now, as you like to ask, Hunter, isn't it a great time to be in this business and doing so, where people are really gaining an appreciation for what we do? And so what we've got to do is make sure that we're balancing that risk perspective with that innovation, and that we're encouraging and maybe even willing to take a few leaps here and there, because I'll tell you, nothing will do better than to encourage further innovation going down is when you've taken that risk and embedded that trust, and they've replaced that with actually performing for you.
What is Horizon 3 really doing as it relates to securing the enterprise in terms of automating red teaming? Talk to us a little bit about that.
You bet, sir. So where we're innovating is we're taking a lot of things that are human in the loop, where an attacker or an APT can do a lot of different things on their own, and they're applying code as they go through and kind of innovating on the fly. We embed that in our AI algorithms so that what we do is collective intelligence across some of the different platforms. And we're giving that attacker's perspective. So as a, for instance, just to give a timing, a traditional pen test, people will have a pen test run once a quarter, every 6 months, once a year. And the time it takes, and I'm sure people out there listening know, it takes 3 to 4 weeks of buildup. Then they're doing interviews with people on site. Then they're going through, a couple /24s or maybe 1,000 IPs, because they're very narrow focused, and that talent, that's that ethical hacker, white hat hacker, is so very narrow. And then it takes about 6 weeks to kick a report out. What we're trying to do is give time back to those teams so that we can give that attacker's perspective. And we've been able to run on about 6x of that coverage in about 6 hours. And so what we're doing is where a person can identify their own scope, it's completely unintrusive, no agents, all SaaS, and they get that report back in 6 hours. So they're able to go after and fix what matters. That speed of delivery to that time to value is really where we're seeing our impact.
Excellent. And Monti, people can get in touch with you at Horizon 3. How can they do that?
Horizon3.ai. If they go out to the website, they can register. And right now, during National Cybersecurity Month, we made it available so that any organization can run our product for free in their environment. They can scope the environment themselves, or they can even, if they want to, run it on their home network and see how those Alexa devices and their wireless printers match up against our Node Zero.
So it's a free trial, right?
It is. It's free trial going right now.
Awesome. Thanks, Monty. Great job.
You bet. Thank you,
Gary.
Hunter.
Gary, welcome back. Gary, when you think of the incredible growth that you've had in the last, say, year, what do you attribute it to?
Well, I think, as companies embrace digital, transformation, and the fact that, IoT enablement has increased a lot of new efficiencies. Obviously, this, COVID-19 has kind of thrown a spanner into the works, right? A lot of, this new norm of kind of working from home has definitely created new challenges. And I think one of the key areas for us, just kind of taking a step back for a second, as we all know, right? IoT has kind of created this huge opportunity for organizations, but it's also created this new attack surface, which is really, only broadening with the kind of promise of 5G and other wireless enablements. So when you, kind of look at the new threats and risks that are being created by working from home, I think a lot of organizations haven't really thought about the new risks and threats associated being connected to this shared medium of wireless, right? And when you have corporate assets on there alongside your smart TV or your smart thermostat or your smart cameras, they're not realizing that this could be potentially an invisible espionage threat to the business, and that there's new ways, or there needs to be a new approach, a new way to looking at the threats and risks associated with those new IoT objects mixed in with the corporate environment. So because we have seen this kind of growth in working from home, whether it be through Wi-Fi or through cellular, there needs to be the ability to kind of fingerprint at any given time what is on this network. And what a lot of organizations may realize, wireless is kind of, as part of the OSI model, is kind of operating at layer 2. You think that the firewalls and their VPNs at layer 3 is actually doing the job to secure these connections, and it's not. There's definitely vulnerabilities and risks associated with these new, corporate assets mixed into the kind of shared medium. So we've seen a lot of interest from organizations, whether it be in enterprise or at home, being able to kind of fingerprint the new risks and threats associated with this mixed environment, Hunter.
Thanks, Gary. Hey, Gary, how can people get in touch with you if they want to follow up?
Yeah, our website is just 802secure.com, and sales or info at 802secure.com. They can get a hold of us there.
Excellent. Hey, thanks for coming on the program. Hey, Phil, when you think of innovation at Avanti in your culture, why is that important to you all?
Well, Monty talked a little bit about culture. It is just so critical. Innovation I don't think comes naturally to folks, and especially engineers and that kind of thing. You kind of have to give them time and distance. A couple of things I think are real critical in kind of helping develop a culture. First is making sure that you set aside time for people to be innovative. Hackathons are a great way to handle that, where you just actually have the teams kind of set aside a few days and work on a problem that's not associated with the the everyday bug fixing or whatever it is they need to be doing. Give them time to be innovative. And secondly, you need to provide them, and from a security perspective, this can be real challenging, but you have to provide engineers with the ability to be able to kind of have some freedom and to fail and to do things that are kind of a little bit different. You want to give your engineers that kind of latitude. Obviously, you don't want to have them doing that in a production environment. Customer environments are very different, but you want to give them a lab environment where they can, where folks can be innovative and they can be creative. I tell my team frequently that a big part of our engineers' job is to look on the internet for crazy ideas and download them and see what's going to happen in our environment. So we need to be able to make sure that we're allowing them to have that kind of liberty and that kind of freedom. That's part of enabling them to be creative and to let things loose and kind of come up with new ideas.
Excellent. Hey, we got about a minute left. I'd like to go through final comments by everyone. Hey, Evan, most interesting, creative, innovative time that you've seen in your career in tech, the enterprise tech?
I mean, I think absolutely. You know, my past job, I ran the machine learning at Twitter, machine learning team at Twitter, and saw all sorts of crazy things over my time there. But I think just COVID-19 has created this new era for just how people work, and it's going to change, every knowledge worker's job and the tools they use and the technologies they use. And it's kind of a, maybe crazy and terrifying, but also fun time to be, involved in, enterprise software and technology.
Thanks, Evan. Check out Abnormal Security, everyone. Hey, Monty, best time ever to be a tech professional?
Absolutely. It's a lot of fun. I think right now, especially during this COVID-19 time, we're all evaluating what we in the military call combat effective or not. How can we be combat effective no matter where we are? And that demand for greater tech and that innovation and invention is really driving some cool changes. It's cool to be a part of it.
Excellent. Thanks, Monty. Check out Horizon 3 AI, a really cool company. Gary, pretty exciting time. Would you agree?
I think it's a phenomenal time to be in tech, and I think the next wave of internet access is going to be via satellites. So satellites to me are nothing but an IoT device running an OS and a frequency and a protocol. So being able to have this global ubiquitous internet access via internet services, satellite services is just really interesting.
You're right on. I agree with you. Very cool. Hey, Phil, thanks again for Avante's support. Final comment?
Well, one of the things that, we've talked a lot about how important it is right now from an innovation perspective. Innovation is driven by gaps between what is currently available versus what is needed. And right now, the gap, I don't think, could be larger than it is right now. We've got entire industries that are being upended and turned over and changed fundamentally and probably forever. So from an innovation perspective, there's just plenty of room for organizations to figure out new ways to solve problems that are coming up oftentimes for the first time right now.
Thanks, Phil. Very strong. Hey, reach out to Avante and the other three companies, folks. When they reach out to you, take their call. They're great companies. Thanks, guys. Great job.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Mary Kay Payne. Mary Kay is the Director of Population Health and Analytics at Arch Health Medical Group. A great fan. I'm a great fan of Mary Kay's. I think Mary Kay is a great fan of HMG. Great to have you on the program, Mary Kay.
I am. Thank you very much.
Take it away.
Hello, and welcome to our executive panel on strengthening employee engagement and their behavioral health during these unprecedented times. I am your moderator, Mary Kay Payne. Now more than ever, as leaders, we have to support our workforce as they navigate very different work environments. We live in a different world than we did 7 months ago or even 30 seconds ago. So how do we adapt as leaders, and how do we facilitate that adaptation in our workforce? So luckily, we have an excellent panel of industry experts to provide us their insight into leading this change. Hank Capps, for a Senior VP and Chief Digital Health and Engagement Officer from Novant Health. Shelley Selvaraj, a Senior VP of IT of Dexcom, and also Karen Weatherholt, VP of Human Resources, Talent Acquisition, Talent Management, and Diversity with Illumina. So if I could ask each of our panelists to provide us a brief overview of your company. And I see, and let's have Hank, let's start with you.
Good afternoon or good morning. I hope everyone's doing well today and appreciate the opportunity to spend some time with you. I, as Mary Kay said, am the SVP and Chief Digital Health and Engagement Officer at Novant Health. Novant Health is a $5 billion and growing health system in the Southeast US and has, over the last number of years, really led the way around technology transformation and building out that modern approach to engaging our patients and our team members. So appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Great, thank you. Karen, if you could introduce yourself and your company.
Hi, Karen Weatherholt. I work for Illumina as the VP of Talent. We are a genomics company, biotech, and we have about 8,000 employees around the world, with the majority here in the United States.
Great, and Shelley.
Hi, good day. Thanks. I think I work for Dexcom. Dexcom is a medical device company that has got a continuous glucose monitoring device for diabetes patients. And we are about 5,000 employees spread globally, again, majority of them here in the US.
Great. So Shelley, what are the drivers for effective employee engagement and how have they changed during this period of pandemic?
Thanks, Mary Kay. I think I've done some research and I've read research. It has not changed as far as I could see. The main drivers have always been the manager to engage the employee, then the teams that the employee feels really a part of, and then the company, usually in that order, where manager has a bigger influence on the team than the company. I think with this pandemic, what I have seen is all of them, the gaps between these three drivers is closing. Now, everybody, the manager, the team, and the company, we all have to really drive the employee engagement. I see the gap closing between these three drivers.
Karen, I understand that you've launched some specific studies on the effect of these changes on your employees and management and how work has or has not changed. What have you found?
Yeah, I think like Shelley said, the drivers of engagement haven't changed, but certainly how we do that has completely blown up in this new environment. You know, I came across a Gallup study recently that really asked the question, has engagement changed during histories of pandemics or recessions? And they actually found that it hadn't. They found that engagement is still directly related to how the organization responds, the practices we put in place, how the executives are engaged, and the kind of proactive communication about here's where we are and here's where we're going. So we took that a little bit further in our regular employee engagement surveys, which we now do quarterly, and found that all the efforts we had put in place in COVID to have meaningful conversations, to have monthly like messaging from executives about what's going on and what's happening in our space has worked really well. And our employees are absolutely reflecting a high level of engagement, which we're thrilled about. I think what was interesting, though, is the toll it's actually taking on managers, that the managers are using so much effort to engage with their employees and keep this connection and keep the communication going while they, too, have to manage their day-to-day life and work-life blending and no commute time and stay-at-home school, that they are the ones actually feeling the burden. So I think these meaningful conversations are critical, that we keep them going. And I think for leaders on this call to recognize the impact it's having on your leadership team and give them a little bit more care and feeding so they can continue to deliver for the whole organization.
And Karen, just to follow up on that, what specific characteristics are you finding in managers that are doing well in this new world? And how can we support our managers who aren't adapting well?
Yeah, I think, you know, I'm a huge fan on managers being able to see where we're trying to go. But I think what's unique in this environment and kind of a differentiator is that the leaders who can see, oh, we can get there in a different way. That's what's emerging. I don't have to be at a desk from this time to that time. I don't have to do X, Y, and Z in that way. I can work a flex schedule, or I can connect in different vehicles, or I can be empowered to make my own priorities. And that flexibility is absolutely showing where leaders are really rising to the top.
That's great. Hank, what has been the cultural impact on these many changes and how required, and as a result of your company's response to the global pandemic? What has been the impact in the culture in your organization?
You know, I think as they just described, that mechanism of engagement, culture is kind of the nervous system that drives it. And so organizations that have that strong cultural sense of purpose and appreciation built into who they are, you know, responded in a new context, but it's the same response. And what we found in a flash, really, declaration of emergency on March 12th, we had to stand up clinical operations now in ways that we'd never done it before. And at the same time, transition a huge workforce that had never been anything but in person to remote. And as a growing, thriving health system with, you know, the constant movement that occurs as a part of that, how do you take the culture and make all of that happen all at once? And that's really what we saw, was that need to drive the culture, you know, in the care delivery, also in the movement to remote, and keep the connection between people around that common purpose.
Now, we're all technology professionals in one way or another, But has the overwhelming kind of torrent of technology solutions for remote workforce helped or hindered your efforts?
I'll take that one. I think we talked about, we talked about, this is a technology summit, but we are talking about now employee engagement and mental health of employees. It has become a lot more important. So for us to really look at all available technology so that we can provide all the tools for them to work efficiently without friction has become very important for the organization. So we have been looking and providing any technology that they bring up, we take into consideration so that we can offer that to the employees so that they can really work efficiently in this remote environment.
And Hank, you provide behavioral health services, I believe, in your company. How have you seen behavioral health care evolving in the face of these uncertain times? And specifically, how do you incorporate that in caring for our own employees?
Yeah, so I think there are a couple of facets to that. First, behavioral health has always been amenable to more technology-driven interactions, but the demand for that has not ever been there to the degree in which it is now. So in an instant in time, demand rose, thousands of %, and people responded by rolling up their sleeves and taking care of each other, in both the sense of team members taking care of each other to then take care of patients. And so, the future that I would see is a much more digital approach to behavioral health. It's comprehensive, and it starts with, basic engagement on technology platforms, to engagement with another individual like a coach, to a therapist, to a psychiatrist, and through all of those pathways. And so we've fairly quickly pivoted to providing all of those kinds of services, both for team members and for patients. And the ongoing challenge is that there's more need than there are hours and technology tools to deliver on. And so I think as a society and as a country, we're going to continue to have to be focused on how we continue to scale the services. And in the context of a global pandemic, you have a whole new set of people facing challenges and stresses that didn't exist. So I think a huge opportunity exists in caring for first your team members, but also then thinking about how that extends over communities.
Karen, with the recent and very necessary heightened focus on diversity and inclusion, has the new workforce dynamic helped or hindered efforts in this area during this time?
I think some of both. I certainly think navigating difficult conversations are easier in person, where you can see nonverbal cues and you can watch body language and you can see the energy and kind of have that give and take conversation. At the same time, though, working remotely has, I think, created a safe space to have some robust conversations, because people can turn off the camera or can choose to be silent and just listen. So I think there's kind of been both sides of the coin here. I think what's critical for all leaders is to recognize that, having these uncomfortable conversations, whether it's about racial tensions or divisive political environments or whatever is next around the corner, to have that inclusive conversation about how are you feeling. Let's anchor to the higher purpose of what we're trying to accomplish at work. Let's talk about how you're doing, and resources available will help employees continue to be engaged no matter what comes in the coming days.
Yeah, I think,
go ahead, Shelley.
Actually, with Karen on this one, we are having more conversations on this topic now than the pre-pandemic because of what is happening around. And one key thing is, we talked in the prep meeting, for leaders to bring humanity to these meetings, right? More empathy. We heard all day from other panelists, we had to bring more empathy. In terms of leaders and managers, also looking at the variability in work output. How do we bring, some are able to work much better in this environment than the others. And how do they look at so that we can balance the workload so that the team as a team produces similar outcome to pre-pandemic outcome, but individuals may not be able to do between month to month, week to week. I think that's become very important to go look for that work output diversity as well.
Hank, what has been your biggest challenge in supporting your workforce through these changes?
I think the biggest challenge is the uncertainty. So from the moment that we started making all of these very rapid changes to deliver on care, to take corporate areas and technology areas into remote work, it's really been an open-ended question of what's next. And so this sense of, that we're in a new interim, not a new normal at any given point, I think is just fatiguing to people. And so that fatigue of the new interim in tension with the uncertainty, both in personal lives and work, with all of the change at one time, just means that the support our team members have needed has been exponential to what it might have been in usual circumstances. And you can't remove the context of the world we're in from the work environment that you have. Mm-hmm. And how do you, have empathy, embrace that, and engage with people how they need to engage. And each individual seems to have very unique needs, which is true always, but seems amplified during the current moment in time.
Or do you have any specific creative programs that we maybe haven't touched on that you're specifically proud of or really energized that you've implemented for your workforce during this time? And I'm opening that up to all the panelists.
I think one thing that we had to become aware of is just the global nature. As a global company, the technology availability in the last mile from different countries is very different. So we really had to apply that, saying, okay, for example, we are having this video conference and somebody's sitting at home. We are able to do that without much interruption. That's not true for all theaters. So applying what works within the geography has been very important for us.
I think my comp and benefits partners have been very creative about recognizing, we already provide a suite of different benefits to recognize the uniqueness of employees around the world, geography, life stage, et cetera. And I think they did a lovely job in saying, what are the items we can just pull forward? Because we know traditionally XYZ program gets implemented in December, say, but oh my gosh, it's May. And the organization clearly needs that wellness bonus or a reminder about mental health benefits or whatever that is. And so they've gotten super creative about pulling those things forward to meet the needs of all employees at the same time.
Karen, as a follow-up question, given your unique position in your organization, for employees who aren't adapting, how do you handle that?
Well, I hate to be a broken record about meaningful conversations, but there is something about leaning in to say, A, how are you doing? And then doing kind of two-way problem solving to say, so what would help you? And we actually put together a little bit of a toolkit for the employee to be able to think through, okay, what is it really that I need? Do I need a flex schedule because the kids are home from school and I have to get them on Zoom? Or do I need to go part-time? Or do I need to take a leave? And so the employee first has to say, what is it I actually need? And the leader goes through the same exercise and says, okay, if I look at, I think as Shelley said, getting work done, where are the things where we have to be the same and where could we have some flexibility? And then they come together to have that conversation to try and find a win-win solution. And that seems to work generally. It's always an exception, but generally that seems to work well.
Hank, looking back 7 months ago, what is the one thing you would have done differently sooner in supporting your workforce to succeed? Or differently or sooner?
Yeah, I think that when everything kind of broke, the first thing that we really did was to try to set the stage for the immediate action that needed to be made. But I don't think that we looked far enough out to give people some of that sense about what was coming next. Some of that because we didn't know, and some of it was because we hoped that it would be different than what it was going to look like. And, and so I think that, hindsight being 2020 and knowing what we know now, we would have made some decisions that were longer term very early on and taken action to help those team members adjust to that new interim that was in place. And I think that would have helped with some of that uncertainty and some of the challenges that I spoke to earlier.
Great, and boy, this time frame does really go by quickly. I want to kind of wrap up with each of you speaking about, do you have some key takeaways for our audience or some strategies that you really want them to consider going forward? Shelley?
I think I heard that from other panelists and also here with Karen and Hank. I think bringing more empathy, listening to the people now is more important than ever before. Just listen more. That means leaders and managers spending more time. And I used to say, you know, I felt like in the beginning in March 2020, I was working 20% more and being 20% less effective. Now, talking more and more, I'm working probably 10% more. I've become 90% effective. I'm still improving. I think allowing that, acknowledging that is very important for everybody.
Great. Hank?
I think it's about culture and driving it home in a new environment and the intentionality to create connections built around that culture.
Great. Karen?
Well, I think this new environment creates stresses that are unique to this time. And I would encourage leaders to get your teams to find ways to refuel. Cut those meetings down 10 or 15 minutes so that people have a break. Turn your video off. Encourage people to not work from dawn till dusk with purpose because they're reluctant to do it. But we need time to refuel in new ways because the grind is different.
Great advice. I want to thank our panelists for participating today. They've given us some great insight and some things to really think about as we try to support our workforce now and going forward, and be ready for the next, hopefully there's not a next pandemic, but the next challenge that we might have in our workforce. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Great job, everyone. Thanks so much. Hey, another great digital summit and a great partnership with San Diego Sim Chapter. I want to invite Barb Monroe out to the stage. And Barb, closing comments?
Yeah, so once again, our 9th annual summit partnering with HMG Strategy Hunter, and I think it was a great one. I'd like to thank you and Kimberly, Tom, the rest of your team for helping put this together. I'd like to thank our sponsors, our advisory board that was very thoughtful in putting the content of this session together. And of course, thank our speakers, our panelists. And I thought they did a fabulous job. The content was spot on. And honestly, I was skeptical that we would pull off what was typically a full day session into 2 hours, and we did it. And I think it was very well done. So before I turn it over to you, I have one plug to make. I would be remiss. My co-founder, Yasmin Shah, who could not join us today, she is following the Amazon way and has an Amazon delivery service that she's a partner of with Amazon. But she had put out a challenge to everybody at this summit, our SIM members, non-SIM members, anybody who would like to participate and respond to her post that she made about the summit. She is offered to donate $1 for every like, every comment, every share, up to $1,000 that she will award to a student here in San Diego. So we're all about our student scholarships. And then at the last minute, I saw Paul Peabody, who is our academic liaison committee board member, said he would match her contribution. So I encourage everybody on this call and right now on the chat, I'm going to put the link there for everybody to like, comment, do whatever, but we would love to raise $2,000 to give to a local technology student here in San Diego. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Hunter. Thank you.
Great. Good. Thank you, Barb. Love it. So, hey, Steve, I saw you're back on the stage here. Do you want to say a couple comments?
After Barb's comments, how can I top that? Those are some great comments. And again, just diddling what she said. Thank you to everybody that helped put this on. And don't forget to do the likes, because we are really a big part of the chapter is about giving back to that next generation of technology professionals. So thank you in advance.
Awesome. Great to be with you, Steve. Thanks. Hey, a shout out to our partners. Thank you to Darktrace, Informatica, Sonatype, Zerto, and Avanti. Because of you all, we're able to have today's summit, and we're going to write a nice check for the San Diego Sim Chapter that I know goes back to really good use. Right, Barb?
It goes to those scholarships. Again, thank you all for your support.
And look, enjoy your fall and the autumn here, and we look forward to a debrief call and planning next year's programs.
We look forward to it, Hunter. Thank you again.
Take care, guys.
Thank you, everybody.